I am a normal guy like any other. This is my story. I was 18 years old when I had my first relationship with my 50-year-old neighbor. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Maybe it is, but many times love acts in a mysterious way. Stay until the end to know the outcome of this story. Welcome to your favorite channel, Pride Chronicles. We have seen that more than 90% of the people are not subscribed. Therefore, to not miss any video, subscribe and like the video. Let's start. Enjoy the story. At 18, I never imagined my life would take the turn it did that summer. I had always been a quiet person with a fairly stable routine. I lived in a quiet residential neighborhood where everything seemed to be normal until my neighbor, who had always been a mysterious figure to me, became much closer. His name was Javier, a 50-year-old man who had lived alone for as long as I could remember. He was not the kind of person who stood out at neighborhood gatherings, and his presence was almost imperceptible. I always saw him from my window, and although we had never spoken much, something in his gaze always caught my attention. One hot afternoon, I decided to go out into the garden to get some fresh air. I was tired of the monotony of everyday life and needed to clear my head. As I lay down on the grass, I noticed that Javier was sitting on his terrace. I watched him out of the corner of my eye as I had done so many times before. But today something was different. Maybe it was the way he looked, more relaxed, more open. Or maybe it was the first time I saw him without that serious expression he always wore. I got up from the grass and approached the fence that divided our gardens, something inside me urging me to break the ice. "Hello, Javier," I said nervously, not knowing what to expect. He looked at me in surprise, but soon his face softened into a smile. "Hello, Andres," he replied, using my name with that warmth I had never noticed before. That little exchange of words made me uncomfortable, but at the same time, curious. Are you liking the video so far? As we know you are, leave us a like and subscribe to the best storytelling channel on the internet. Let's keep going. From that moment on, we began to talk more often. Javier started going out to his garden more, and I, of course, took every opportunity to keep him company. At first, our conversations were trivial: the weather, the neighborhood, work. But over time, those talks became deeper. I discovered that Javier wasn't just an older man with a boring job. He had an interesting story, full of adventures I never would have imagined. His travel stories, his life in the city, his personal experiences fascinated me. I felt I was connecting with someone who, although older than me, shared many of my interests. The attraction started to become more evident, although at first I tried not to pay much attention to it. I kept telling myself that it was normal to feel sympathy for someone I had begun to get to know better. However, something about the way Javier was looking at me made my thoughts become more complicated. His gaze, so sure and penetrating, left me speechless. At times, I felt there was something more behind those eyes, something I had never dared to question. One night, after a particularly long talk about music and art, Javier invited me into his house. I hadn't given the invitation much thought. It wasn't unusual for us to invite each other to hang out. But that night, the atmosphere was different. As I entered his home, I noticed something in the air. The soft light, the cozy silence of the house, and the way Javier carried himself all seemed inviting. We sat in his living room, where we began to talk about our lives, about the things that made us feel alive. Hey, wait. Before we go on, we invite you to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Also comment us if you want to hear a particular story. Let's go on. At some point, the conversation drifted to more personal, more intimate topics. There was a palpable chemistry between us, and I couldn't help but notice that his gaze was more intense than it had ever been. Suddenly, Javier moved closer, breaking the distance between us. I didn't know how to react. It all happened so fast. With a smooth movement, he took my hand. I don't know why, but I didn't reject him. Instead, I felt a warmth run through my body, as if everything was fitting together perfectly. Javier leaned toward me, and for the first time, our mouths met in a kiss. It was slow at first, cautious, but soon everything changed. That kiss was all I needed to confirm what I already felt deep inside me. I didn't know what was going on, or whether I should feel guilty or excited. But the truth is that I couldn't stop myself. That night, everything I had repressed, everything I had felt for Javier came to the surface. My hands explored his body, and in his response I felt that somehow he wanted it too. The age difference, the social expectations, everything seemed to vanish at that moment. We became two bodies that understood each other without words, that sought each other in a desire that could not be ignored. The next day, I woke up in his bed, feeling confused but also strange. I had never been in a situation like that before. I had given myself completely to something I hadn't planned, something that seemed to be a dangerous game. Javier was there, looking at me with a calm smile, as if everything was the most normal thing in the world. "Are you okay?" he asked me, his tone soft, but with a hint of concern. I nodded, not knowing what to say. "Yeah, I never imagined this would happen," I replied, still in shock. Despite the doubts and confusion, I could not deny what had happened between us. Weeks passed, and what began as a strange relationship full of uncertainty grew into something deeper. We had crossed a line I never imagined would exist, but a part of me couldn't let go of the feeling of being with someone who, though older than me, understood my desires and my fears in a way that no one else had. Hey, please don't forget to subscribe and like us for more content like this. It helps us to grow this community more. Let's continue. Although at first it was hard for me to accept what had happened, I soon realized that it was nothing to regret. I felt loved, wanted, and for the first time in a long time, understood. The age difference, which at first had intimidated me, seemed to be just a number. What mattered was what we shared, the connection we had forged in that short but intense time. The summer passed quickly, and our relationship continued to grow. We weren't a traditional couple, we didn't have the label or recognition that other couples had, but what we shared was real. Javier and I understood each other, supported each other in difficult times, and loved each other without fear or reservation. Looking back, I realize what that experience meant. Not only was it my first love, but it was also a lesson about life, desire, and how sometimes the paths we take lead us to places we never imagined. I never imagined that my 50-year-old neighbor would be the one to awaken something so profound in me. But love, like life, has mysterious ways of manifesting itself. Now, at 18 years old, looking into the future, I know that this relationship was more than just an adventure. It was an apprenticeship, a stage in my life that taught me to live love in an authentic way, regardless of the prejudices or barriers that society may have wanted to impose. And although today our relationship has taken another course, I will always remember those moments with Javier as an important part of my life. An unexpected relationship, yes, but one that changed me forever. Looking back, I realized that this relationship with Javier was much more than just a chapter in my life. It was an experience that helped me to understand myself better, to accept that love has no rules or clear boundaries. Although the circumstances were complicated, the time we shared taught me to appreciate the deep connection that can arise between two people, regardless of their age, gender, or history. Sometimes love comes when we least expect it, defying our expectations and proving that the most important thing is sincerity and mutual respect in any relationship. This has been all for today. If you liked the video and this story surprised you, leave us a like and share it with your friends so they don't miss it.